Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the Orange One's spectacularly bad end to the week when he had to declare his favourite social media platform an enemy of the state, and then it transpired he'd paid millions of dollars in order to make Biden's presidential win actually even more impressive. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, although Trump's antics in pushing the idea that the presidential election was somehow fraudulent when the alleged fraud took place under his watch as president and in states where Republicans are sort of in control of the process, and when the judges he appointed have made it clear that Trump and his lawyers have presented not a shred of evidence to back up their outrageous claims, we do still need to enjoy the times when irony hits Trump square in the face, because we don't get very much mirth these days, do we? And the bad end to Trump's week began, I suppose, with the questionable photo opportunity. The orange one at an undersized desk. So small, in fact, that the presidential seal didn't really fit on it in any serious way. Now, I have no idea why this prop, that's all I can call it, was used. I'm sure there's some sort of thinking behind it if I were to read into it. Maybe he thought it would make his hands look bigger or something. But of course, the online ridicule began immediately. Various memes emerging relating to Trump's seeming inability to get what was termed a big boy table. Perhaps in parody of when Trump was told to wear his big boy pants by a Democrat politician in response to the president's less than presidential behaviour when the election results started to roll in. Needless to say, the orange one's skin simply couldn't take it. It's far too thin. He can dish it out, but he can't take it. He's far too weak for something like this. So he tried to invoke a section of internet law, section 230, I gather, and terminate this trend. He said it was a fake trend. That the trend would diaper don, he was being called. Diaper don. So it's a fake trend, and it should be terminated in the interests of national security. But if I may just give the outgoing president a little bit of personal advice, you know, from having been on social media a bit myself. If you're getting a bit of stick, you know, trolling, bullying, whatever you want to call it, if you're getting a bit of stick and you don't like it, making impotent threats and protestations only makes the trolling get worse. Although on this occasion, people didn't even need to keep up with this sore spot because Trump then presented his opponents with another one. Almost immediately after, the next day, certainly. So it can't have escaped too many people's notice that Trump has been instructing lawyers, presumably at great expense, to make false allegations of fraud in the courts. The cases have been thrown out, of course, including by judges that Trump himself appointed. There's no issue of political bias there. And I'll come to the latest example in a few minutes. But the action has continued. And yesterday, I woke up to the news that Trump's Wisconsin recount had gone a little bit wrong. Now, I remember a commentator saying, might have been Graham Hughes, UK based, at the time when the results were coming out, Georgia was looking really tight. Trump was ahead, but it looked like Biden would just sneak it. It looked really close. And that he said that he hoped that Biden wins by 1 vote, that Trump forces a recount, and then Biden wins by 10,000 votes, something like that. This sort of happened in a way, different scale. So Trump spent $3 million on forcing recounts in a couple of counties in Wisconsin. Now, I say Trump spent $3 million. I mean, that won't be true. I suppose what I really mean is that his supporters spent $3 million because it'll come from their donations to be further humiliated and trolled on social media. And the results are... They're in for the first county, Milwaukee County. I suppose the other ones might be announced by the time this video comes out. But in that first one, actually, it just extended Biden's lead. By a net total of 132 votes. Not a great deal, but it's fine because it's on Trump. It's not really worth the cost. But Trump supporters paid for it. And then we had the federal court judgment. Now, this is a Trump-appointed judge laying out in very clear language that Trump's team have not offered one iota of proof to support their allegations. The judgment, which I'll post in the description below because it draws everything together. You don't have to read the whole thing. But the first couple of pages really clear. It's just in a couple of pages it explains in detail that non-legally trained citizens can readily understand and digest that there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to have any doubt in the electoral process that has just taken place, and if there is any doubt in it, that Trump's team have absolutely not provided any doubt. There's no merit at all in their objections, and also their objections in this, because this relates to Pennsylvania actually, was completely pointless because the number of ballots that they want thrown out is less than the margin for victory. So not only have they no basis for their case, it's a pointless case as well. It's actually wasting court's time. In other words, even if their argument had merit, which the judgment, as I say, makes clear they do not, wouldn't actually impact either the wider presidential election results or even the specific allocation of votes in the state of Pennsylvania, which is the focus of this particular judgment. But the judgments are meaningless in some ways. Where it gets serious, so that's all very hilarious. Trump's made a fool of himself again. But where it gets serious is Trump is still pushing the idea of this fraud. Even when he loses these cases, even when sometimes his own team just cancel the case. It doesn't even have to get thrown out. They just go to court and then they say, well, we ain't got anything. What do you want to do? Call it a day? Yeah, let's go and get a pizza. Doesn't matter. Because the positions we're in now is we've moved on from these fears that Trump could cling on to power, sending America over the cliff edge of totalitarian rule. He's going. We know he's going. He knows he's going. But his refusal to acknowledge the defeat means that millions, tens of millions of Americans doubt the fairness of their own elections. Worse, some are convinced that they are unfair and that the result has been defrauded. Now, we compare with Trump, for example. So his press secretary this week was trying to claim that this is so unfair that Trump himself was not given a smooth transition of power from Obama to Trump, which is, of course, a lie, complete lie. Now, lots of people at the time, of course, presented the not my president trend. But the reality is that although what they meant by that is he's not speaking for me, I don't wish to be associated with him. But he was their president and everyone knew that he won. Yes, he lied and he played on destructive prejudices, but the election itself was fair. No, there wasn't any split in the country about, the election was stolen. Whatever splits began forming in America, or had already formed and have formed since, there was no fault line between people who thought that Trump had won the election and those who thought that Clinton had won the election. People knew that Trump had won it. Unfairly maybe, but he'd won it. The same is not now true of Biden. People will not merely resent Biden being president because he's not their pick. It's not going to be a not my president moment, but because they may genuinely believe that he really isn't the president, that he didn't actually win, and that this potentially renders Biden's win not as a rejection of Trump and his politics, but merely a battle loss for the Orange One. Because if he can continue his rhetoric for the next few years, and the Republicans, there are quite a lot of Republicans who are not siding with this, but there are quite a lot also who are. And especially if Biden finds himself blocked by Republican legislators, even on issues where you would think there's shared benefit, but just for plain party politics, they decide to block him anyway, make him as impotent as they can, then Trump could come back. I don't necessarily mean the man himself, I mean the idea. You can't rule out Trump coming back, I suppose, but I think much more likely the baton taken up by another. Biden won his victory on the back of people who just wanted Trump gone. They regretted not turning up to vote in 2016. It was hammered home to people. This was caused because you did. It wasn't caused because more than half the country wanted Trump as president. It was caused because people who didn't want him as president but also weren't all that fired up about Clinton didn't go out and voted. Now what we've got. Is this no worse than Clinton? Seriously? Now you can't. So they then went out to try and correct the mistake in 2020. You can't undo what was done. I don't actually like this phrase about correcting the mistake. They haven't corrected any mistake. What they've done is to at least avoid continuing the mistake. But what happens in 2024? Because the Trumpsters, followers of Diaper Don and his acolytes, will still turn out in droves to vote. They may not be voting for Trump. It may be someone else. But they will turn up, outraged by the way that they think 2020 was stolen from their Messiah. But will those who are against the dangers from another Trump mould turn out to vote again? Will they do it? Will they feel that Biden and the Democrats delivered enough to get them out of bed to fill out their ballots again? Or will 4 years of relatively stable, but perhaps boring leadership fail to inspire them? And do we get a repeat of 2016 because the Trump side, whoever is his new protege, decides they can get their supporters out, but the other side is a bit more apathetic because they haven't really seen the benefit. Because that benefit is arguably, we had 4 years of not Trump. Do they then usher in another 4 years of Trump to the max? Because that seems to be what's at stake here. And to that end, you could argue Trump and certainly the wider movement doesn't really care about losing these court cases, because win or lose, those cases serve him just as well. Or more specifically, as I say, serve the one who comes after him, who may well be a Republican with more political experience, intelligence and charm, and will therefore be even more insidious. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.